Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for episode 16 of Get in the Bin with me, Andrew Musgrove, and
Me, Sam Mulliner, fully donned in the latest Newcastle United home shirt.
yes, for those who are listening, Sam has spent his pocket money on the new Adidas Newcastle United home jersey. You happy with it?
Yes, I am a fan. It feels great, looks great. The sizing was because I ordered mine online. I because I had to work on Friday and I don't live local to Newcastle as you all probably know. But the sizing was a big query for me because like the last shirt I think and Castor in general, I love the designs of Castor. But we had to size up. I think that was a common theme. We had to size up. So I got the same size in this as I would were it Castor, and this is a bit looser, a bit baggier. Don't get me wrong; it's still absolutely fine because I've got a bit of timber about me. But yeah, it's great. Love it. It feels like the material on it feels very good as well. So yeah, it gets a big thumbs up from me.
The big question is that the Pro one or the slightly cheaper one?
The slightly cheaper one. I don't. I mean, they both look fine. I just don't. I don't know why I would need a pro one because I'm very much not a pro.
Well, if Eddie Howe gives you the call, that'd be the perfect reason.
The pro was very popular. I noticed on Friday the website actually sold out of the pro. They
It
got
did.
more in, but the pro's been flying off. I mean, we like you've mentioned price points before and whatnot, but it's obviously the more expensive shirt, and it was obviously really popular.
Have your young uns got the new shirt, or is it just you?
Yeah, no. Charlie has been Charlie, who's 7, has saved up his money for a few months now. He managed to save up £35, bless him, which is a lot of money, which should be enough to buy a new home kit, but it obviously isn't in this case. So I subsidised him. He didn't know that, but yeah, he has one as well. He's very happy with it.
Well, we did do an episode where I suggested that shirts should have a price cap on. Do you
Yeah,
agree now? Did you agree back then? I can't remember.
I
I
think
think you had,
yeah, I don't think I disagreed because that doesn't sound like something I
but you
would.
had it. Did we draw? I seem to remember thinking I had you in the bag, but you came to the table with something that was equally as important or irritating. I can't quite remember what it was, but I think that it stands given the prices of the shirts. Not just Newcastle United issue, it's an issue across the Premier League. And I still think a price cap at some point to make it affordable should be in the works. I think what you said was just don't buy it if you can't afford it, I think was the gist.
No, I don't think I would have been as well. Yes, I suppose if you want to take it out of context. But my point was that were there a price cap, these websites that make these knockoff ones would somewhat disappear. But as things stand, people are kind of almost forced to go to some of these websites if you want the shirt, and some of them make very good copies. This is 100% legit, and I'm very happy with it. But I don't judge people for not having a new home kit or whatever. It doesn't make you more of a fan than anyone else.
Yeah, couldn't have said that better. I think it's a lovely design, really nice kit from Adidas, and really intrigued to see the
What?
away strip and third strip as
Oh
well.
my god, yeah, and the retro gear. What did you make of the advert for?
Loved it.
Um, I'll be
It
honest, it made me well up.
Yeah,
Which I was watching it next to my wife, who looked at me with sheer disgust and confusion. Because I mean, she put it plainly. She was like, "What are you doing? It's a kit advert." And she has a point, but oh my god, there's so many nuances in there, and just it was. I would describe it as perfect.
yeah, you can see they've done the research. They've looked into what really gets Newcastle United fans going, and it was a near perfect advert. And a bit like your wife, my wife couldn't quite understand why there would be people queuing outside the shop for the home strip. When I said to her, I'm going to have to get up to go to work, leave the house at 5:30 to get there and start filming people and interviewing people. And she was like, people will be there that time. I was like, they will be, and they were in their droves, including one man I can't quite believe I'm going to say this to you, and this is the first time I've told you this. He came up to me and he said, "I love the podcast, but you've got to get Sam on more." And there was a few other comments about you being witty or funny, but I can't quite remember it. I kind of tried to delete that bit from my memory. But to that gentleman who stopped me, thank you very much for the feedback. But his main point was just how good you are.
Yeah.
And this is getting slightly ridiculous now.
It is, isn't it? Especially as I do this for free. But yeah, no, thank you to whomever that was. I mean, it would have been nice if Andrew would have remembered and got your name. But you know, that's the kind of personable approach I would take. But you know, when you're a hard-hitting journalist who has to film people queuing for a shop at 6 a.m. Although I did see some of your stuff actually, it was very, very good. And the chap who queued from like 12:30, he got a handshake. Yeah, he got. Oh, you remembered his name. He got a handshake off Darren Eales as well, didn't he?
Yeah, that was a nice touch to see them come down.
Did you go down to Quayside Saturday night?
I didn't know, but from what I saw, the clips and Salah sent over some nice drone footage. It looked absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it did. It did. Yeah, Lee for Newcastle Fans TV was there because I was working. But yeah, it looked just a fantastic couple of days. And
yeah,
you do kind of like I look down at this shirt and then you see the 3 stripes there of Adidas and you think, yeah, it's almost like we're back again. And I don't know why. Like other fans of other clubs just might not get that, but I think there's just something special about our lot. That you know, just we're a sentimental bunch. But yeah,
no, I agree. And I wrote yesterday for the Chronicle and the YouTube video on Sunday about how the last few days is the best sales pitch to any potential new sponsor, because where else are you going to get 10,000 fans heading down to the Quayside for a light show at a moment's notice? Where else are you going to get people queuing around the shop through the night for the new shirt? You know, there is something very special about what this fan base can give you as a sponsor. If you want maximum exposure, this is the club to be. So head over and read that story on our website. But let's get into today's episode 16 of Get in the Bin. Do you want to go first or shall I?
I don't mind going first this week. I think I made you go first last week, didn't I? Because I was waffling on about my holiday. Yeah, my one this week is alcohol in the stands.
Ooh, hello.
I think we're all grown up enough now. And this had me thinking back to, again, I know I go on about Dortmund a lot as well, and it seems like I'm a bit of a closet Dortmund fan. I'm not. I just thoroughly enjoyed my few days there. And the whole attitude in German football across the board, actually, in the Bundesliga and whatnot, you can drink in your seat. And the attitude is, as long as you're not a D-head, you crack on. If you're going to act like a D-head, then you can jog on, which I think is a wonderful attitude to have. They are, and bearing in mind, I was sat in the home end at Dortmund as well, wearing colours, no issue. Again, as long as you behave and not act like an idiot, you are absolutely fine to enjoy whatever. I think that attitude now should be across the channel into England, and I'd like to see it at Newcastle, and it would kind of eradicate a lot of half-time congestion.
Does it make it though? I mean, look, speaking as someone who is teetotal, I get it. I'm coming from a different angle, but even when I enjoyed a wee drink, I think I only ever went to 2 games where I'd had more than maybe a couple of pints beforehand, and then I wasn't sitting there thinking, "Oh, I could have a pint here and enjoy this game." For me, it doesn't do it for me. I mean, would it really enhance your match day experience to be able to have a pint in the stands?
No, again, I'm not a big drinker anymore. I used to be, but again, this isn't me purely selfish reasons and thinking what benefits me, unlike last week. But it's just a case of, look, let's try and be responsible adults. Not everyone is going to rush down and spend 100 quid at the bar during a game, and you wouldn't want to, because at the end of the day, you're there to support your team. I think the difference now would actually be fairly minimal. I just think, if you can, because one thing I hate as well, I hate when the second half starts and you don't see the stadium full. You don't quite have that same atmosphere for a second half. Wembley being a massive example of that. Wembley is still half empty when you're in the 50th minute because you've got people coming out from bars and whatever. I think it will add a lot more to the atmosphere towards the start of the second half. Queuing and congestion at half time is quite claustrophobic at times. Yeah, I just think it would smooth the process out.
Do you know when the ban first came in place?
No, I don't. Are you going to hit me with a hard-hitting stat? I'm going to
I
guess.
am.
I'm going to guess sometime in the 80s.
It was, but as I am the hard-hitting journalist, I do like to come
Mm,
to you with the facts and research, Sam.
mm, mm, mm.
1985, the consumption of alcohol in the stands of English football grounds and stadium areas with views of the pitch was banned in order to curb uh, disorder. Also banned on buses and trains taking supporters to games. This applies in the highest 5 tiers, so from the
Yeah,
Premier League down to the National League. So it's been in place for a very, very long time.
the law
So
as well has like an absolute crackers element to it as well because I did the stadium tour for my lad's birthday earlier this year. And the fantastic tour guide, if you've never been on a stadium tour at St James's Park, please do go. The tour guides are absolutely fantastic. She was explaining to us if you are in a private box and you are drinking inside your box, not in the stands, but inside the comfort of the box and facing the pitch, you are breaking the law. If you turned around and were facing away from the pitch, you are not breaking the law. How mental
that
is that?
is crazy. That is mental. That is, I didn't know that is mental.
Mm.
How interesting. You know,
But it's that views of
it's,
the pitch thing that you said yourself there.
yeah.
That's the kind of the small print.
Do you know what? It's about trusting fans, and I just think while the majority who would enjoy a pint in the terraces would enjoy it, and there'd be no bother, they'd have one or two. You will always get a small element that would go too far and spoil it for everybody. And I think the risk is that it's not just them passing out in their seat or maybe throwing up upon themselves. Sorry, you're just having your breakfast or your dinner while listening to this. It probably the gamble and the risk is that it turns violent or there's an altercation, and I can't see this law changing. If I'm being brutally honest.
I think you're being overly cynical. I think so. The ban came in the 80s. How further have we come with things like security and stewarding and things like that now in 2024? Again, yeah, I agree. There will always be absolute knobheads that'll go too far. But again, that attitude in Germany is see you later, you're gone, and you're not coming back.
Yeah, but you see, I look around St James's Park, and it doesn't take very long to see people vaping, and they make it very clear that vaping within the terraces is not allowed, and yet people still push it and still do it, and I just think that is a hint, a suggestion of how people push the rules with something so minor there.
I think that's different though. Don't get me wrong. If this was a kind of not get in the bin for all human life, vaping would be one of mine. I detest it. Friends and family do it, and I just loathe smoke being blown in my face. It's just awful. But I think that someone having a cheeky vape, or someone like you say passing out, throwing up in the stands and whatnot. I think those two are completely separate. And like you see on away days as well, people have been on the drink all day. If you're noticeably kind of wrecked, you don't get access into the stadium anyway, and you'll soon be escorted out if you're being an idiot or you've gone too far anyway. Um, I don't know. I think you're pointing at a very small, minutiae of football fans.
I guess one of the arguments for lifting the ban is that the current ban encourages football fans to pre-drink before games and maybe even come into the stadium worse for wear. And if you were allowed to drink throughout the game, maybe that would stop fans or some fans coming in and already being, a little bit too tipsy.
Yeah, and also as well, when the Super League had their magic weekend at St James's, you could drink in the stands. When Wembley have boxing events on, you can drink in the stands. Um, it's and you're actively encouraged to half the time with the boxing and whatnot. And I was at Joshua Klitschko and I saw scraps outside of there, but there you go. I just think, like going back to Germany, I just never saw 1 ounce of bother between away and home fans, and no issues with people going over the top. And people are carrying like these 4-point pitchers to their seats and whatnot. The queues aren't very big because they're manageable and spread out across the day, so you're not actually missing much of the game at all. Personally, I wouldn't go and do it because I don't want to miss a second of the game. But yeah, I just think it's just another one of these outdated laws that I think we can do better.
Interesting. I mean, people will point to cricket, and that seems to largely go by without any incidents. I've also found a quote here actually from Tracy Crouch, who people will know was part of the Tory government looking at what were they bringing in, some sort of football report reform thing. And she said back in 2021 that we kettle people into drinking quickly at half time, and that is the unhealthy aspect of the football fans' relationship with alcohol. They drink a lot in a short space of time. So my recommendation is to pilot this, i.e. removing the ban and not have to down a pint at half time. Of course, I mean, that's kind of generalizing football fans as being those who drink too much there. But interesting that was back in 2021, and here we are 3 years later, and word of a trial seems to have gone very quiet.
Look at rugby as well. There's no home or away ends. You got Twickenham for a Six Nations match.
You see, though,
in the stands, and you could be sat next to you. It's England versus Ireland or whatever, and you're sitting next to an Irishman, and you can both have a drink at the same time. Same like you say in the Test match. I had a great time at Edgbaston. Some great days there watching Test cricket, and again on race courses as well. There's the bars are open all day there. It's one of them, and the security around race courses is lax at the best of times. So I don't think it's just this whole law is just pigeonholed to football, really.
But I was going to mention it because before you said you were sitting at the home end of Dortmund, no bother, it was great. But I do wonder, and again, I'm not generalising every football fan because I'm a football fan, you're a football fan, we're very well behaved. The majority of people are well behaved, but I could never see a Premier League game in which fans are mixing within the terraces. I think Newcastle as a city is very unique. Very few pubs and clubs up here on Tyneside ban away fans from going in. I think, to my knowledge, there's one that doesn't allow away fans in. But for the majority of pubs and clubs, you're more than welcome. And everyone gets on really well. Doesn't matter what the result's been. And it's brilliant to see. But it's unique. And I don't think that's the case across the country. And if there's lots of elements which roll into allowing alcohol into the terraces, and one of them certainly I don't think is allowing fans to mix. I don't think that would go down.
No, that's not the argument. And no,
I'm not. I'm just making the point that you've mentioned it, and it just it sparks something off in my head.
It'll take something away between like the back and forth between home and away fans as well. I think that would spoil that, which in all fairness is 99% of the time is good-natured bants. But yeah, I think that would take something away from the atmosphere in Premier League grounds. You don't want it to be completely like Americanized and stuff.
Or Craven Cottage. You don't want a Craven Cottage, do you? They've got a neutral ground, haven't they?
Yeah.
But let us know in the comments what you think. I mean, would you want to see that ban lifted? Would you like to have a pint during the game as you're watching Newcastle United? We'll come back to the point in a moment. I'll introduce my item. And this week It is the suggestion that Leazes Terrace, and that's the listed building behind the East Stand up at St James's Park, should be knocked down, relocated, or impacted in any way to allow for the extension of St James's Park. This has been something, Sam, that's been talked about ever since the takeover, with a lot of fans pouring irrelevance on the Grade 1 listed building, and I think that's quite frankly wrong. I think, thankfully, the majority of fans understand the importance of that building. You know, it's part of Newcastle's fabric, part of Newcastle's culture, and I want St James's Park extended as much as the next fan, so to allow Newcastle to stop exactly where they are, because it's the cathedral on the hill. You know, I don't need to explain how important it is that Newcastle stop in the city centre, but it should not come at the expense of ripping apart other elements of the city's culture and history. And that's my point. Where do you stand?
I stand in the Gallagher mainly.
Very good.
Great dad joke that. So as someone, as an outsider, then not born and bred in Newcastle, what is the significance then? Because there'll be many people listening who don't know. What is the significance of this Grade 1 listed building then? So that it's the back of the East Stand, isn't it? Which
Yeah,
I think is probably that area at the back of the East Stand, in between them and the buildings. It can get a bit grotty.
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, it's a nice enough street to walk down. I wouldn't say it's grotty. I'll just explain the context. Built from 1829 to 1834 by Thomas Oliver for Richard Granger. Of course, everyone knows about Richard Granger, Granger Street, Granger Market. It's a classic style. The houses varying from 2 to 8 bays, and it's numbers 1 to 59 of Leazes Terrace, which are jointly Grade 1 listed. And it's a mix now of student halls, offices, and houses as well. And I mean, the fact that it's Grade 1 listed is quite significant, because it means you can barely do anything to it.
Give it to students. Why not?
Well, basically, that just means that, you know, it's been used. It doesn't mean that the fabric of it's changed, but it's been used for a purpose, rather than being empty and probably inviting some so and so to break in and, you know, do whatever to it. But a Grade 1 listed building is a site of exceptional national, architectural, or historical importance, and it's very rare to find a Grade 1 listed building, simply because of the significance that is placed on such sites. You have a number of limits. You need to apply for building permission if you want to demolish it or extend it or alter it in any way which will affect its character of a building of special architectural or historical interest. You may also require building permission for any works you intend to carry out on buildings within the grounds of a listed building. Basically, it's very, very important. And you look at the other examples, Sam, of Grade 1 listed buildings. You've got the Albert Dock in Liverpool, the Royal Albert Hall, just two examples. And, you know, you see them, you've heard of them. Okay, you might never visited them, but you know about the Albert Dock, you know about the Royal Albert Hall.
I've been to the Royal Albert Hall. It's a magnificent building. I saw David Gilmour off of Pink Floyd fame live there a few years ago. Oh my word!
What a man of culture you are. But the point being, you know, the Royal Albert Hall, probably one of the most visited places in London, and we've got a building that is put in the same bracket as it in terms of its importance and cultural significance. You know, as a city, we should be embracing that and celebrating that, and just any suggestion that it should get knocked down or relocated should just be thrown out. Now, as far as we know, the club haven't ruled anything in or out, but it is understood that Leazes Terrace and doing anything to it will not come into any plan for expanding St James's Park, which is, in my opinion, exactly how it should be. I have seen, and you've probably seen as well, Sam, some ridiculous suggestions about moving the outer shell. So ripping everything out and just moving the facade of it into Leazes Park, which is another issue as well. Leazes Park is a fantastic bit of the city. And it's another thing that some fans just throw away. Move St James's Park into it. And it's like, no, but why St James's Park got the monopoly over this city's culture and heritage? It hasn't. It hasn't at all. I've seen other suggestions about knocking it down brick by brick and moving it back a little bit. I mean, really time consuming and costly measures and ways to go about it. And again, just a smack in the face of the city's culture. It just should not be talked about, And thankfully, that building's going to remain there, whatever happens to St James's Park.
Yeah, I'm with you on the cultural aspects, and the part of it's got a wonderful history, the city, and it's what makes it so beautiful. My solution was going to be the park argument, but you're dead against that. So what's your solution then? Because the way you're going on about it, you're saying that the only solution is to up sticks and build a new
Whoa,
stadium
whoa, whoa!
elsewhere.
You're putting words in my mouth. It's not what I've said
So
whatsoever.
what's the viable solution then? You
Okay, well,
can't.
first off, I just don't think Newcastle, as I've said, should have a monopoly on that culture. St James's Park is very important, of course it is, but its stand should not mean that a building that was built in 1829 disappears from the city. Where it's stood for nearly 200 years. Leazes Park will
Absolutely
be of a
fine.
similar
No
age.
argument. No argument from me there. Absolutely
The
fine.
the solution, I mean, I wonder whether, and obviously architects will be able to tell me this or what have you, whether you could knock down the east stand and maybe build deeper into the ground and make it sort of a kind of a bowl shape without really bringing it too further out. How many seats that would get you, I don't know. People have
Would that
talked
not
about
interfere with the metro?
not from the east stand, I don't think. I mean, I don't know exactly. I'm speaking as I haven't got the knowledge. Potentially, it might do. Obviously, there's fears and it looks like legalities over natural light, which is going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Talking about potentially making a kind of one big glass stand, but that'll just make it into a greenhouse effect, which nobody wants. I mean, look, there will be ways to get around it, where you can extend the east stand without impacting the Leazes Terrace, but it'll probably be costly, and the amount of seats you would get, would it be cost effective? Arguably not. I think the solution is redeveloping the Gallagher. They've got that land behind it. Obviously, that's where the stacks go, and you have the metro as well, which could potentially throw up a few hiccups. But that seems to me to be the viable stand to extend. What you would do, how far you would go up, I don't know. Obviously, as we say, the club have got expertise working on this, who will hopefully come up with the answer in the not too distant future. But the way I look at it, it has to be the Gallagher. That's the only viable option, I think.
What, and leave the east stand as is?
Well, I mean,
That would look
it,
stupid.
well, it would just depend on the cost. The cost, would it be cost effective? I mean, how many seats realistically
No.
can you get in the stand, bearing in mind everything you will have to comply with?
Well, I assume the aim would be to level it up.
Yeah, but I also want, again, speaking without having the expertise, how far can you level it up
Or
without affecting the natural light?
the other argument from Twitter architects was rotating the pitch, wasn't it?
Yeah. Which, again, that was something Sir John Hall, I think, also looked at back in the day. And would it be doable? I mean, you would lose the famous slope, I guess. And I mean, I don't know how easy that would be. I mean, I spoke to an architect about the East Stand, and basically he kind of talked about Arsenal's issue with Highbury, and there was a list of buildings around there, and the reason they didn't expand and moved in the end was because it
Exactly.
would just be an absolute mess. He used, what word did he? I think he used the phrase it would be a logistical nightmare, and then he talked about the cost and expense of it and what you would get out of it, and it wouldn't match up, which leads you to the question about Newcastle United relocating, something I definitely do not want to see.
To add on
Thankfully,
to that as well,
yeah, go on.
on my own podcast, which is available to listen to and download and rate 5 stars now, the Green with the Mull and the Show on Newcastle Fans TV. We were speaking to Pete Graves last week about it, and we were talking about the stadium and whatnot. And it suddenly dawned on me that obviously this is going to be an incredibly time-consuming process were we to expand St James's Park. And my thought was, well, where do we play when this is happening? You can't ground share with Gateshead. There's no real local club that you can ground share with for a season whilst all this work is undertaken. So that, again, moves me to believe that maybe when all's said and done, that a new stadium might be the most viable option. Which again, I would hate. My kind of idea would be the park idea, and to move it that way towards the park. But you seem to want to save the tree when you could easily plant some more elsewhere.
I mean, yeah, but Sam, come on, it's not about planting more elsewhere. It's about, I just think it would send a bad message out if Newcastle United could just run wild over everything. And it shouldn't be like that, because you've got to think about Newcastle's standing within the city. Not everybody is a football fan. That park to some people will
Oh,
be
come
so
on.
important. No, this is the important bit, and you can turn your nose about it, and people listening and watching will be saying, Andrew, you don't know what you're talking about. But to certain people, that park might be the most important thing in their life. It might be their most favorite place to go. They'll have memories there. Might be the last time they've walked with someone before they passed away, sort of thing. And they might not care about St James's Park. They might not care about Newcastle. Not everybody's a football fan. And as important as St James's Park and Newcastle United is, it has no right to call shotgun over anything else in the city.
No,
Not at all.
but it brings a hell of a lot to the area, doesn't it?
It does, but for some people, like I say, it's irrelevant for some people. And this is Newcastle as a city is more than just a football club. As daft as that sounds, because to
Depends who
me
you
and
ask.
you, because to you and me, it's not. The football club is everything, but to some people, it's not. It doesn't matter to them. The city matters to them, though, and other elements like Leazes Park might matter to them more. And I just think, what messages it send out if Newcastle United can just go and do that? And look, we don't know what they're doing. I mean, look, there's talk that they could go into Leazes Park, and then the St James's Park site becomes a green area, and whatever they lose at the Leazes Park will get shifted over to St James's Park, which isn't the worst idea in the world. I could see that
I like
working.
it.
But do you know what? I'm going to do a video in the next few weeks, and you'll probably laugh at this, but I had this idea of the best 5 alternative views of St James's Park. So not just the one you always see, but going around, whether it's looking over from Gateshead, down from the hospital, the QE, whether it's looking across from the Red Reef Bridge. The 5 different views of St James's Park, which I like. And one of them is walking into Leazes Park and seeing, the back of the Leazes end and the roof. And that's an amazing sight. And obviously, look, if they move to Leazes Park, you get that site a little bit further back. But I don't know, there's something special about Leazes Park and the way St James's Park kind of dominates it. Look, I don't know what the solution is. If I knew the solution, Sam, I'd be a very rich man.
My favourite view, my favourite alternative view of St James's Park is now no more, to be honest. So, but I've got over it. I'll roll.
What is it? What was it?
So when you come off the A1M up there and then round the A169, I believe you could see it in the skyline there, but that view is now blocked by the blue student halls and the Sandman, which I've stayed there. It's nothing against the Sandman. I've stayed at the Sandman twice. Yeah, but you just can't see St James's anymore, and that view, especially the first time I saw it, just absolutely give me goosebumps, shivers, everything. But that view doesn't exist because of those buildings. I'm okay. I got over it. It's not.
Well, I was going to say, by you saying that, that's probably an argument that you could put forward against my point, where you say, well, those architects and those town planners didn't care about the view of St James's Park. The buildings went up and what have you. So why should Newcastle United care about the views and what have you?
Well, something had to go there. Something had to go there, didn't it? So,
I mean, I think the important thing is, Newcastle United will be very receptive and very understanding of everyone's views. This is why they're holding this feasibility study. They're not just going to railroad anyone. They'll be looking at all aspects, and I think that's really good. I don't think the board and the owners actually do think they've got a monopoly over the city. I think they understand people's feelings, which is really good to have on board. I mean, the other option, the town moor, is always one that's spoken about. But again, I put that in the same bracket. I mean, it's part of Newcastle's fabric and culture.
Yeah,
I don't want to see that ripped up.
Yeah, look, if they weren't bothered about people's emotional attachments, they would have just said, right, we're building a new 80,000 seater stadium on the racecourse, and that's the end of that. Done, finished, don't care. So they're treating it with the respect it deserves and are looking at every possible avenue. So yeah, they're going about things exactly the right way, and I think their priority is to stay at St James's, and they just want to leave no stone unturned. But if the park has to go a little bit, I'm comfortable with that. But
Well, it would be interesting, wouldn't it? Because
I'm not local to the city, so what right do I have to say?
no, I mean it's all valid. Your opinion. I think the last time something like that was proposed, Friends of Leazes Park really put up a fight, and in the end, they forced Sir John Hall to change his mind. And it's really interesting because you look at how much the extension of St James's Park from 35,000 up to 52, that cost a lot of money, and I think in hindsight, you might ask the question whether was it cost effective. Again, this is what it's all going to come down to. The amount of money it will cost to extend. Are you going to get that money back in seats? These stands an interesting one. I mean, you also mentioned there, if it's a full redevelopment, where would they play? But if I'm not mistaken, and all the listeners will tell me because I was only 10 at the time, I'm pretty sure that when they were extending St James's Park under Freddie Shepherd, the work went on during the week and then work stopped and they played at the ground, with the diggers in the background and what have you. So it is doable, but I wonder whether that's more time consuming where you have to down tools for 2 days, because I imagine it's not just simply switching off a switch. There's lots of things you have to take, and there'll be people displaced as well. So you'll be playing in front of
that's you're right in what you say, but that's all well and good when you're just building on top of a stand. But if you have to move a pitch and to hold and like take down the Leazes as well, I mean, where do you start? The mind.
You see, I mean, the whole pitch idea, that the cost of that wouldn't, like you say, you'd have to pretty much knock down, relocate every kind of stand.
You'd have to play elsewhere for a season. So then what do you do?
Elsewhere, you got those costs, but also just the cost of doing that as a project. I mean, it wouldn't be cheap, and you would probably be close enough to halfway, 3/4 of the cost of maybe an actual brand new stadium anyway.
Yeah, and like I say, I make the point as well. Home games would not be home games. Where do you go? You can't go to Gateshead, Darlington, possibly. You dare ground share with Sunderland? My word!
Don't say that.
Absolute uproar. Do you even go for a bit of an outside the box and go to Hampden Park for a season and subsidise people's travel costs? It's absolutely bonkers, the alternatives. What would you do? It's absolutely, because you could not play at St James's and it would take ages. What do you do?
Look, I mean, that's why I think alternating the pitch is probably not their first choice. I think the first choice will be to expand a stand or maybe 2 stands, but how it's done, goodness knows. And that's why the feasibility study is going to take a wee while. That's why they are the very best architects working on it, just to see what's viable. And it's certainly going to be an interesting outcome.
But what would you do? What would you do? Say if we had to play away for a season, what would you do?
What would I do?
If it was up to you?
Well, I think it would be quite intriguing to see if you could find a site and build a new stadium for Gateshead, which was talked about with what happened with them in the playoffs and what have you. Now, obviously, it would take time for you to build a new stadium, but you could probably do it throughout the summer. You're not talking about a massive stadium. What you're talking about, 10,000 maybe, if that. So, again, obviously, that means you're going to be playing in front of very limited crowds, and then it's how do you get fans in? How would you? I mean, you're gonna have to have a ballot system. We know about ballot. There's a whole lot of issues.
My word.
Yeah. So,
crazy. But then again, the Saudis do build these temporary arenas and temporary stadiums, don't they? And
I mean, one thing for certain is that there would be the financial backing to build a temporary structure to allow Newcastle to play as close to St James's Park as possible. Darlington, Hampden Park, I don't think that would be something that would be on the cards.
No, I was just throwing.
I mean, the Gateshead thing would be an interesting thing to look into. I think I did see that talked about. But yeah, well, I mean, back to the point, Leazes Terrace still standing after St James Park gets extended.
Well, you can't. So it's kind of like a bulletproof. You're so bad at arguing against me that you've kind of brought really forward a statement of fact that I can't really argue with, because nothing will happen to those buildings. They're Grade 1 listed. It's just not an argument.
Well, you can put
But you
forward.
can't, because it's nothing. You can't do anything about it.
Well, I do wonder whether, in very rare circumstances, if you could prove the benefit of relocating that building or knocking it down is more beneficial to the city than it's standing in. I'm kind of, I'm guessing here, but whether there might be a way of that happening.
Don't try and snatch defeat from the claws of victory.
How am I snatching defeat? I've won this one, surely. Are you saying in an ideal world you want Leazes Terrace knocked down?
I want St James's Park to remain.
So if it was doable, right, and you didn't have the restrictions on this Grade 1 listed building, you would quite happily see it knocked down.
I would do the park thing.
Nah, I just can't get on board with that.
Something has to go. Something has to go. Their plan is to extend both the East and the Gallagher, right? So your Gallagher argument's diffuse, because that land is there ready for it, and the stack thing, they've said from the very off that it's a temporary thing. So that will be there until they are ready to start building work on expanding St James's Park, if that's what happens, if that gets the go ahead. The East Stand is an absolute cluster to solve. So something will have to go in order for us to stay at St James's. It's all very well getting misty-eyed about a park and listed buildings, but when it comes down to it, the listed buildings have to remain. Leazes Park is not protected in that way. So I agree. It's not ideal and it's crap, but I don't like lovely parks being built on. But
well, you've just said that it's not protected. Is it a Grade 2 listed building? A Grade 2 listed? I think it might be a Grade 2 listed area.
is it?
I think it might be too. I think it definitely might be. Let me just see here. Leazes Park is a Grade 2 registered historic park and garden, so it is listed.
So we need to dig down on this then, and then what that means, and in that, because
So Grade 2
1
listed.
you can't touch it. So Grade 2, what does that mean?
Let me just historic. I mean, basically, it means the restrictions aren't as concrete or as strong as Grade 1 listed, but it still means it's pretty difficult to
So
do.
the reality is we're going to end up moving to a new stadium.
No, because I think you could. I still think you can do something with the East Stand, whether it's doing it, putting the seats in like Everton have, where they've built very kind of upright, aren't the vertical kind of style, and their new stadium. I think there's ways you can definitely do it without impacting either Leazes Terrace or Leazes Park, and it might be expensive, but if it means staying at St James's Park, I think it would be doable. I think they'd want to do it. And look, they are much more qualified men and women looking at this than us. And I'm sure, as you say, every stone has been turned over to find the solution to stay at St James's Park, to find a viable option to extend the East Stand without impacting on those grade listed areas or buildings behind it. It doesn't appear, though, Sam, that I'm going to win this argument, does it?
I don't know. I think it's a confusing one. Well, no, it's not confusing. It's just complicated. I'd be keen to gauge public view on this, actually.
Yeah, let us know in the comments what you think. I do think I'll be in the minority here.
Oh, so you really need me to give you the win, because if you think it goes to public vote, you think the people will once again be on my side.
Not necessarily. I'm just looking interestingly, right? And this is maybe just someone's very bad drawing of the area that is protected. This is on the council website, and they draw the area which is protected in the I can't say conservation area. And interesting, the line goes straight through the middle of the Leazes. So whether that's someone's bad highlighting or whether that means that area was protected and somehow Newcastle have got. I mean, it's not like they've built in Leazes Park, but the roof does probably hang over a little bit, doesn't it? So that's
Yeah,
probably what
and
it
I
is.
like that you say when you were on about the east before about building high like Everton did. Then that brings back the whole natural light argument about it,
Yeah.
which it
Oh,
again it's just like it's giving me palpitations and a headache just thinking about it.
it's a nightmare. Imagine what it's like for a monastery. Jamie Rubin made
All
that
I
to
want to
see in
do
Leeds.
is just sit and sup a nice pint of Guinness whilst I'm watching a game of football. That's all I want to do. I don't want to become an architect. I just want to watch the game and just have a little drink in the peace of my city. Well, I say I stand a lot, but which you
Would you
could.
like some? Would you like some facts about Leazes Park? It was the city's oldest. It is the city's oldest park. Opened in 1873.
Wow.
There you go.
Plenty of other parks are available though.
Yes, clearly because Sam wants to move
No, I agree though. It is, and
one
it is,
building to you.
like you say, the view there is fantastic. But again, sacrifices have to be made if you want an 80,000 whatever seater stadium.
Yeah, no, I get it, and it is a headache, and that's what people will probably be saying to me that you protect the buildings, you protect the park, then you leave Newcastle United little option potentially, but to move.
What I think we should do
Yeah,
is put it to the public vote, but I will allow you to make a little video clip for social media to express your, because my argument is plain as day, I would think, but I will allow you above like the thread on Twitter or whatever where the vote is, to put a video where you can argue your case and explain the nuances about it.
okay. Thank you. I mean, you want me to do that now, or I'll do it separately?
Do it. Well, no, do it separately. I mean, or you can do it now. No, you can do it separately.
Yeah, because I think I've put my point across very passionately.
Yeah,
Do
you
let
can
us
make
know in
an
the
extra
comments.
clip and just explain it to the Twitterati, and yeah, to kind of drum up some support for your argument, which you'll probably lose anyway.
Yeah, I'm fully expecting to lose. So we'll call this one a tie for now, and we will run a vote, which inevitably Sam will win. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Get in the Bin, episode 16. We thoroughly have, and we will see you guys next week.